Today we are going to tell you about an incident that might bring you to tears. This story begins in the Udupi district of Karnataka. Inside the Brahmavar Taluka, there is a village named Kumargadu. In this village, there is an apartment building under Karen Properties called Milan Apartments. The year was 2021. A small family used to live in Milan Apartments, consisting of Ramakrishna Ganiga, his wife Vishala Ganiga, and their 7-year-old daughter Arvi Ganiga. This family was NRI non-resident Indian and lived in Dubai because Ramakrishna worked for a company there and had settled there. However, they would occasionally come to India because their other family members lived in India. Ramakrishna's family was in the Baijoru village of Udupi, and Vishala's family was in Uppinakote of Gujarati, also in the same district. Ramakrishna had bought a flat in Udupi's Milan Apartments for his wife. So, whenever they visited India, they would stay in this flat. On June 29, 2021, Vishala came to India with her daughter and stayed at Milan Apartments. A few days later, around July 8th or 9, her parents and sister came to visit her in the flat. Everything was normal. Her family stayed for a few days and then left. July 12th was the day of their departure. Her parents and sister were returning home, and Vishala decided to go with them, along with her daughter, to spend some days at her parental home before heading back to Dubai. On the morning of July 12th, around 9 to 9:30 am, they left by auto rickshaw and reached Gujarati by 10 am. Once they arrived, everyone started unloading their belongings. At this point, Vishala handed her daughter to her father and said she needed to visit the bank because Ramakrishna had sent some money, which was needed. She said she would quickly visit the Canara Bank in Brahmavar, so she left in the same auto rickshaw around 10 am, just as the bank was opening. Vishala's parents, sister, and daughter waited for her to return. As time passed, 3 to 4 hours went by, but Vishala had not returned yet. Her family thought there might be a crowd at the bank, so they called her in the afternoon, just to check in. But she didn't answer. They tried calling several times, but there was no response, which caused them to start worrying. As evening approached and the sun was setting, her father decided to visit the flat and check, thinking maybe she had gone there for some work after visiting the bank. Only Vishala, her husband, and their daughter lived in the flat, and when they were away, the flat would remain locked. Worried, her father and elder sister reached the flat and rang the doorbell. After waiting for a while with no response, her father pushed the door, which was not locked but just latched. It opened in one go. As they entered the living room, their worry increased. The house was in complete disarray, with things scattered on the floor, shelves and cupboards open, and there, in the living room, Vishala lay on the floor. Seeing this, her father and sister were shocked. Her sister started crying, and her father checked to see if Vishala was still breathing, but she wasn't. He composed himself and called the police. The area came under the Brahmavar police station. The police arrived quickly. Looking at the condition of the house, it seemed like a robbery had taken place. Next to Vishala was a phone charger. The police noticed marks on her neck and deduced from experience that she had likely been strangled with the charger's wire. Her father pointed out that when they had left in the morning, Vishala was wearing a lot of jewelry, but now her gold bangles, Mangalsutra, ring, and earrings were all missing. Her father informed the police about this. The forensic team was called, and they inspected the body and the surroundings, taking photographs. The body was then sent for post-mortem. The police registered a case of murder against unknown persons and began their investigation. This was a major case involving the murder of an NRI woman. By the next morning, the news appeared in newspapers. The police and the family had already informed Ramakrishna in Dubai about his wife's death, and he was devastated. He said he would immediately leave for India. Meanwhile, the forensic team and the police started a thorough examination of the crime scene. It appeared to be a robbery since Vishala's jewelry was missing and the house was ransacked. However, after speaking with Vishala's parents, several questions arose. Vishala had left with her parents and sister, taking her daughter, and said she was going to the bank to withdraw money. But why did she return to the flat? She was supposed to go to her parental home. The police went to Canara Bank and found out that Vishala had never gone there. She had lied to her parents. On July 13th, the day after the incident, while investigating the flat, an officer noticed 2 cups of tea on the table in the drawing room. The cups still had a little tea left in them. as if someone had drunk from them but left a small amount behind. The officer. They went into the kitchen, where a kettle of tea was left on the gas stove, with some tea leaves and a little tea remaining. Vishala's father was asked whether they had drunk tea before leaving the house, and Vishala had just left the kettle like that in the kitchen. Her father explained that they had left the house neatly organized. Vishala had cleaned the house and washed all the utensils. They hadn't drunk tea before leaving. If the family hadn't had tea, then who had it? Either a man came to the flat and had tea with Vishala, or two men came, and Vishala served them tea. But those people must have come to loot. Why would Vishala behave like that with them? Any girl alone at home wouldn't let an unknown man enter or offer him tea. Surely, this must have been someone Vishala knew. It seemed more likely that there were two men involved because one man alone couldn't do everything. The killer was definitely not an outsider. He must have been someone Vishala knew. The officer informed his seniors about the cup. There were no CCTV cameras installed in the building that could help identify who came there. The crime scene left the police even more confused. That same day, the SP of the area formed 4 different teams, determined to catch the killers. Each team was assigned different tasks, such as checking all the CCTV cameras installed in the area, examining Vishala's call history and location, questioning people, and closely examining the crime scene for any possible clues. An auto rickshaw came to drop Vishala and her family home, but instead of taking her to the bank, it took her to her flat. The driver knew the family well, and the family also knew him. The police quickly began tracking down this auto rickshaw driver. By July 13th, he was also taken in for police questioning. He stated that he had followed Vishala's instructions. First, she asked to go to the Canara Bank, and then on the way, she asked to be taken to Kumar Gadu's flat, saying she had some work there. The driver dropped them off at that location and left. He didn't know anything more. The police interrogated the building staff. Some people said that the auto driver dropped her off and left. The police let him go. The post-mortem report revealed that Vishala was murdered by strangulation. There were marks on her neck, and her windpipe was damaged. The mobile charger used to strangle her was recovered by the police right at the beginning. No clues linking the killers were found at the crime scene. Vishala's father was asked if his daughter had any enemies or if something had happened in the past, or if she had been in love with someone before her marriage, etc. But her father denied all these possibilities. The police reviewed almost 60 surrounding cameras, but found nothing. Over 100 people were interrogated, but nothing was revealed. Meanwhile, from July 14th to 15, Vishala's husband, Ramakrishna, returned to India from Dubai. He conducted his wife's last rites, and everyone in the house was very saddened. The biggest sorrow was that the 7-year-old daughter was now without her mother. How would she be cared for? How would she live without her mother? The police also considered whether Ramakrishna had a hand in Vishala's murder and began investigating from that angle. They pulled up his complete birth chart and spoke with both close friends and relatives of the couple. Vishala and Ramakrishna were married around 2010. It was an arranged marriage. The girl was reasonably educated, and the boy worked as a personal assistant to an NRI entrepreneur in Dubai and had settled there. After their marriage, they moved to Dubai. According to Vishala's parents, there were never any reports of arguments between the couple. They lived lovingly in their home. Ramakrishna had bought the flat for Vishala so that they could stay in their own home when they returned to India. After the lockdown eased a little, in March 2021, Vishala, her husband Ramakrishna, and their daughter Arvi returned to India. They stayed for about a week or 10 days, having come after a long time, as there hadn't been any travel during the lockdown. After a few days, when Ramakrishna's vacation was over, he returned to Dubai with his family. 2 or 3 months later, on June 29, 2021, Vishala returned to India with her daughter to divide some property. On July 7th, this work was completed. After this, Vishala's in-laws came to her parents' home for a few days. The police thought that perhaps someone had harmed her because of property issues, so they investigated that angle as well, but found nothing. The police examined Vishala's phone call details and found that she had received her last call from her husband, Ramakrishna. They had talked for a while, and then the call was disconnected. This was around the time when Vishala was on her way to the bank. After his wife's death, Ramakrishna was still in India. The police spoke with him, and he said their conversation was just like any other day. Nothing seemed unusual. A week had passed, and the police had no leads and were in the dark about the investigation. For now, 4 teams of police were working on it, but 2 or 3 more teams were also assigned. The police thought to pull up Vishala's husband's call history. Perhaps there would be something there. Ramakrishna's CDR report was extracted, but nothing was found there either. The police began investigating who Ramakrishna might have called from Dubai at that time. By July 18th, the police took Ramakrishna in for questioning, as they had grown very suspicious of him. During his statement, he seemed a bit nervous and didn't provide satisfying answers to certain questions. When asked why he needed to buy a flat when Vishala could have lived at her parents' place, he initially couldn't answer well. Then he stated that he bought it for his wife so she could have her own home. He was questioned more firmly, and after some time, his courage broke down, and he admitted that he had orchestrated Vishala's murder. He had been thinking about getting rid of his wife since February 2021. Ramakrishna had a close friend in his company named Dharmendra Kumar. In conversation, he asked Dharmendra whether it was possible to get someone murdered without leaving home. Dharmendra replied that it was indeed possible. If you pay contract killers, they will do the job. This was the first time Ramakrishna learned that he could pay someone to kill another person. He then asked Dharmendra if he knew anyone who could do this, and Dharmendra said he knew someone, but he wouldn't be found here. Ramakrishna informed him that he wanted to get rid of someone who was troubling him. Later, he was introduced to a man named Swaminathan Nishad over the phone, who was a hitman known for killing for money. He was from Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh. Dharmendra first arranged a meeting between Ramakrishna and Swaminathan over the phone. During this time, Ramakrishna came to India with his family in March 2021 and began making all the plans. After arriving in UP, Ramakrishna went to Gorakhpur, met Swaminathan, and finalized the deal for Vishala's murder at 5 lakh rupees. Ramakrishna paid 2 lakh rupees in advance to Swaminathan and promised to transfer the remaining 3 lakh once the job was done. It was obvious that Swaminathan wouldn't do this alone. He had an accomplice named Rohit Ranapratap, who was from Mumbai, Maharashtra. Once everything was fixed, Ramakrishna brought Swaminathan and Rohit to UP and introduced them to his wife, Vishala, as his friends who would help her in case she faced any issues. This way, 2 contract killers became acquainted with Vishala. After Ramakrishna's leave was over, he returned to Dubai with his family. He then planned to send his wife back to India again, thinking that they should complete the division of property. It turned out that the flat that had been bought was in Vishala's name, and Ramakrishna wanted her to transfer that flat's ownership to her father, Vishala Ganiga. Thus, on June 29, 2021, Ramakrishna sent Vishala back to India. The property papers were signed on July 7th, and the murder was scheduled to take place on July 12th. The day before the event, both hired killers arrived in UP and learned that Vishala was at home with her in-laws. Ramakrishna called Vishala and told her to send her parents and other relatives away, and she should also leave and return shortly after. Vishala did as instructed. However, on the morning of July 12th, Ramakrishna called his wife again and informed her that he had sent money to the bank for her to withdraw, as she might need it. Ramakrishna knew the timing, as he called his wife when she was returning from dropping off her parents and was heading back to the bank. During the call, he told his wife that his friends were waiting at their flat with a parcel for her, saying that they had gifts for her and some items for their daughter's birthday. Vishala became very excited that her husband had sent gifts and quickly took the auto to the flat. When she arrived, 2 criminals were standing there. Vishala, thinking they were her husband's friends, invited them inside. She asked them if they would like tea or coffee, and since there were 2 people, she made 2 cups of tea for them. Swaminathan and Rohit told Vishala to sit down and rest a bit. They told her that they would take care of everything and not to worry. She was happy and excited, as she thought it was a surprise birthday party for her daughter. Swaminathan took out the charger that was already hidden in his pocket and approached Vishala, pretending to be friendly. He said he wanted to gift her something and asked for a hug. As soon as she moved to hug him, he quickly took out the charger and wrapped it around her neck and pulled tightly. Vishala's body fell limp. They did not even think that she might shout, nor did they think she might resist, as it was all very quick. Swaminathan and Rohit threw Vishala's body on the floor and began looking for any cash or valuables. They quickly rummaged through the house and left. Afterward, they called Ramakrishna to tell him that the job was done. Ramakrishna, who was in Dubai, transferred the remaining 3 lakh rupees to Swaminathan, and they were on their way to return. After that, the police were left with the investigation of the murder case, but with no clues. The murder took place at a very intelligent level, with no evidence against Ramakrishna at that time. Later, during interrogation, Ramakrishna fell into the trap and admitted to the crime. By that time, the police had already traced the account and bank transactions to Ramakrishna. The police nabbed both Swaminathan and Rohit in a few days. After many interrogations, they revealed everything they had done in the crime. They told the police that they had first killed Vishala and later stole jewelry and cash. The police recovered some cash from them. After this incident, Ramakrishna was sentenced to death, as he was the mastermind behind the entire operation. The police worked tirelessly on the case, gathering evidence and tracking down the suspects. The investigation continued, leading to a successful conclusion, ensuring that justice was served for Vishala and her family.